President Trump traveled to Wisconsin to attend the groundbreaking of Foxconn's $10 billion plant on Thursday. The administration sees this as a big win that'll bring jobs to the region, but there's been criticism of the tax breaks and incentives that Foxconn received. Meantime, trade tensions between the U.S. and China have not ceased. Foxconn chair Terry Kuo called it the company's biggest challenge, and Alibaba, meantime, is scaling back its investments in the United States. Here to discuss, we are joined by Bloomberg Tech's Selina Wang and Gerrit de Vynck. Gerrit, talk to us about the economic and political irony here, given that Foxconn is also China's largest private employer.
I think Trump wants to make Foxconn one of America's largest private employers. I mean, he was very happy, and obviously this is sort of a signature kind of, Trump visual media show that he loves to kind of point to. He kept talking about how many jobs this was going to bring. If this goes perfectly to plan over the next 15 years and all this money gets spent, there should be about 13,000 pretty high-paying jobs that are created. Trump tweeted this morning it's going to bring 15,000. So no matter how well it goes, it's always, not exactly in the realm of the hyperbole that he's bringing into it. It's very controversial in Wisconsin. Not everyone in that state, which of course is an important state, electorally supports it. There was about $3 to $4 billion of incentives that were promised, and of course that's not all up front. That comes in the form of tax breaks and subsidies as the plant gets built over the next decade.
So, tweet from the governor of Wisconsin, we're beginning to see the statewide economic impact of Foxconn, with businesses and workers all over the state benefiting from Foxconn's supply chain and investments. Once fully operational, Foxconn is expected to source $1.4 billion in supplier purchases annually within the state. Of course, the deal that was ultimately struck here, very controversial. How many jobs are actually being created?
Well, in the best case scenario, 13,000. Those are not going to happen tomorrow. This was a groundbreaking ceremony. They don't even have buildings set up yet. And the average salary of those jobs, the commitment that Foxconn made to Wisconsin was that they would be paid $56,000. So these are well-paying jobs. These are not, Silicon Valley well-paying jobs, but for the area, they'd be manufacturing jobs. And they're the kind of things where you can see people putting things together, working in tandem with robots, exactly the kind of jobs that President Trump thinks of when he's talking about bringing jobs back to America. And so it's very core to his message that he's sending out there, that he can get deals like this done. And of course, we have no idea whether in reality those jobs will actually come to the extent that they want them to.
Watching President Trump, Selina, shake hands with the chair of Foxconn, who has been out there saying that a tech war is the biggest challenge to the company, is kind of crazy.
It's really ironic, to say the least. I mean, this deal may not be great net for Wisconsin. I mean, obviously, as Gerrit said, there's a lot of these tax breaks and incentives that they're doing to bring Foxconn there. Not to say the least that this trade war that Trump has started could hurt some of the Wisconsin farmers there. So the backdrop against this great ribbon-cutting, handshaking event, there's a lot of ominous things that are at work. And just yesterday, Trump said that he wants to block Chinese investments in the United States. They want to expand the powers of CFIUS. So on the one hand, this is great for bringing jobs to America. On the other hand, this could also be incredibly harmful, everything this administration has been doing to Foxconn and its global supply chain.
Meantime, Alibaba, we've noticed, has only made one investment in the United States so far this year. What should we be reading into that?
Looking at the data, it's pretty shocking. There's been a clear pullback in Silicon Valley. Just in the years following the IPO, the sentiment was so different about Alibaba. They were supposed to be making these huge, sizable stakes. Everybody was looking at their investments in big consumer technology companies like Snapchat, like Lyft. They were in a messaging app called Tango. They were making tons of deals, and there was actually some concern in the Valley that this Chinese investor was taking board seats and maybe wielding too much influence. And now we've seen them dramatically pull back, and they only made one tiny investment in an early stage startup this year. Now, my sources have told me that they did lose their top deal maker and they aren't replacing him, and I think that's pretty indicative about the prioritization that they're putting on investments in the U.S. But there's a lot of stuff at work behind the scenes here.
What is Alibaba saying?
Well, Alibaba has declined to comment.
And this is a company that has repeatedly said they're not out there to compete with Amazon, they're not out there to steal U.S. consumers, but Could they become more competitive? Could that strategy change?
In the near term, it's definitely not their priority. They have a lot more greenfield space in domestic China still, in Southeast Asia, where they've just poured $4 billion into Lazada, a Singaporean e-commerce market. In the U.S., before, their focus was really to find partnerships, to find things that could be tangential to their core e-commerce business in China. Now, even though they're probably not going to be able to make any splashy deals in the near future, they're still investing heavily around the world. They're going to invest $15 billion in R&D over the next 3 years. They want to build labs around the world, recruit scientists in the U.S., in Israel, in Russia, in China to be leaders in artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, robotics, all areas that the Trump administration is very concerned about.
So, Gerrit, paint the bigger picture for us here. Obviously, we have this groundbreaking in Wisconsin. We have potential legislation on CFIUS. We have the continued back and forth between the White House and Beijing. You know, how does all of this impact the global supply chain?
It's difficult to tell. We have this trade war going on. I mean, from Foxconn's perspective, they got a very good deal from Wisconsin, you know, regardless of the whole Trump and trade war factor. But you could tell in the way that Foxconn Chairman Terry Gou was talking, you know, he even had this moment where he kind of raised his fist and he said jobs, jobs, jobs during his speech introducing or speaking just before the president took the stage. He is obviously appealing to Trump on a personal, on an emotional level, on a political level, to say, look, I'm not one of those bad Chinese companies, one of those bad foreign companies that's trying to compete with you and take away jobs from Americans. I'm here on your side. And I think they understand that if you can kind of give Trump the headlines that he wants, he may go easier on you, or you may not become at the center of his crosshairs. But at the end of the day, you know, this trade war is continuing, the rhetoric is escalating, and the trade barriers that do go up do affect Foxconn's work in China, which, you know, may be another good reason for them to begin manufacturing things here in the United States.